Well, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jo Phillips, otherwise known as JoOutLoud, and tonight I have Melanie Sorsdahl with me. And I actually met Melanie on Twitter. That seems to be a theme with JoOutLoud. And so I'm really interested in her story. Thanks for joining me tonight, Melanie.
You're welcome.
So we're going to use the random age generator. We're going to figure out what age we're talking about first.
Oh,
So I just hit the button. So Melanie can't actually see me. The program's not working properly. She can't see me. She sees a gray screen. And so this is going to be an interesting experience for her to not be able to make eye contact and yet tell us her story. So, Melanie, we're talking about you at 26 years old.
oh boy, that's the year.
Is
Yeah,
that a year? It's
that's a
so
year, all right.
It's so
Um,
funny. Every single time it's been the year for almost
yeah,
everyone, which is so cool.
yeah, it was a very
Okay,
big year.
well, let's talk about 26. Where were you at 26?
Well, on to be very specific, on March 15th, 2006, I was officially diagnosed with a very aggressive form of breast cancer. Um,
Wow.
yeah, my husband and I had been trying for about 3 months or so to conceive. We were really looking forward to being parents, and then we got that diagnosis, and obviously those plans had to be halted immediately. Yeah, so that's what I was doing at 26.
Oh,
Yeah,
holy. See, I
yeah.
knew that like I wanted to be able to talk about your diagnosis and
Mhm.
your fight, but I like
Yeah,
turns out we're going to anyway, right?
yeah, that was pretty random.
Yeah, that was very random. What city were you living in at the time?
Red Deer, yeah.
So you were here in Red Deer.
Yeah.
So you just got a diagnosis. How long had you been married?
We got married in June 2000, so 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this wasn't like newlyweds. You had
No,
been married for 6 years at 26 years
I know.
old.
We were silly, silly youngins. It just
Wow.
worked out, so we're grateful.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. All
I'm
right.
crossing my fingers
So,
my son doesn't get married at 20.
oh, I think we all do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not an easy thing to do.
No.
So you were living in Red Deer, you
Yeah.
were trying to have a child, and then you got this diagnosis.
Mhm.
Um, what like what happens after that? Like you sit in a doctor's office or like what's next?
Well, what had like I guess what started the ball rolling was like maybe TMI, but I'm one of those people that sleeps topless. And I got
Okay.
up one night, like I got up around midnight to get a drink of water, and I it's all like so I don't know the right word for it, but it's like all meant to be. I dripped some on myself, and I went to brush it off, and I felt something that had not been there before. And I went upstairs to my husband, and I'm like, "Well, do you feel that?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's probably nothing." Because I mean, I'm 26. Who has breast cancer at 26? And so I went to my family doctor, and he said the same thing. He said, "You're based like you're 26. It's probably nothing, but let's be sure and send you for some tests." And so we did that, and that's how it all started. And they did a bunch of I don't know how to explain it. Like they did a biopsy of the lump that I found, and um, obviously they found cancerous cells in it. And once I got that diagnosis, I mean, of course, when I heard her say the words, like my surgeon told me, and of course, I had my little cry. And my next thought was just like, okay, what's next? Because
Mhm.
I was only 26 and I had so much more that I wanted to do. So I knew it was going to be an ugly year, but I just wanted to know, okay, what do we got to do now?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I wasn't prepared
Mhm.
for us to jump into this quite so soon. That's like because I know like I
Yeah.
knew you were young, but
Hmm.
I that's so different from my 26.
Yeah.
Were you working at the time?
Yeah. In my, I usually just say in my past life I was a hairdresser, and
Oh,
I had worked for the same lady for about 6 years, and um, I just I came back after the same day I actually got the test. I got a call from the surgeon to come get my results, and I said, okay, I'll just drive up and come chat with you. And that's when she told me, no, you should probably call someone to drive you up here. And I didn't even have to hear her tell me I had cancer. I just knew I did. And
mm-hmm.
then I came back after that to get my vehicle and had to tell my boss, I don't really know what this is going to look like, but it's my last day for now until I can tell you otherwise.
Wow.
Yeah.
The I I I don't know that we often think about the sheer scope of what a diagnosis means on the day
Mhm.
that it happens. Because it's not just that part of your life that changes, but every
Mhm.
part of your life changes in that
Absolutely.
moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much.
So you just went on, you had to take a layoff from your job?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what was your husband doing at the time?
He was actually in his third year of plumbing school at RDC. So he was in the schooling portion of it. He wasn't working at that time.
Mm,
So he was, I think the day I got my diagnosis, he was in the middle of an exam at RDC. And yeah, it affected, like, of course, I was the most affected by the diagnosis, but it's interesting on the outside looking in these years later, just who was affected by my diagnosis and in which ways. It's kind of interesting to see their perspectives.
mhm. And they like for him, he couldn't lean on you, I
No.
assume.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's amazing.
Mhm.
I usually ask the question, what did you hope to do at 26?
Uh,
So
I wanted to be a mom, but
yeah,
that had to just wait a while. Yeah.
yeah. And I know you're so grateful for your
Oh,
son. Yeah.
so grateful. He
It's
drives me
amazing.
batty, but
Well, the when you go to battle for something to happen,
mhm,
you're just so much more grateful when it does, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. Did you know when you were like you went through chemotherapy and
Mhm.
radiation, all of
Yeah.
that stuff? Did you know if you were going to be able to have kids after?
No, actually, one of the most amazing oncologists, or he's not even technically an oncologist, he's just an internist, is what they call him in Red Deer. His name was Dr. Graham, and he has since retired. The hospital lost a great man when he retired, but he was very tell it like it is. Like he wasn't harsh, but he just didn't sugarcoat anything. I remember flat out asking him, do you think I can beat this? Like, I think he came to visit me at my hospital room after my surgeries, and he's like, you know what? I don't know. We're gonna try. And like he does not sugarcoat anything, and he's like, we're gonna beat the shit out of you for a year
Mm.
and hope for the best. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, and like, of course, my husband and I wanted to be parents, and we just said, oh, how long after this until we can try? And he said, from the final day of treatment, 1 year to wait before you can, just to make sure there's no recurrence and, you know, well, radiation has left your body, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what was the first day when you had to go into treatment, what
Hmm.
your first treatment, did you start with chemotherapy and then went on to radiation?
Yeah, I had to do the at the time, like back in 2006, Red Deer did not have the facility that they do now. They did not have the ability to have radiation in Red Deer, so I could only do my chemo there. And
Gotcha.
yeah, so nothing went right that day. Like, I have really lousy veins, so they had to give me something called a portacath, and it's like a it's like a little device, probably. I don't know how this is going to look online, but like that big, and it
Okay.
is it's like a little cup with a reservoir, and it's inserted into your subclavian artery, and it is where they gave me my medicine to prevent from destroying my veins. And so I don't know where I was going with this. Yeah,
So your
my porta
first
path
day.
was, yeah, it was too swollen to be even able to use it that day. So yeah, they had to poke my feet, oh, it was an
Mm.
awful day. The rest of them were smooth, but that one sucked.
And that was your first day?
Yeah, not a good
So
first
you're
impression.
no,
Yeah.
like you're going to battle and you're like, okay, I can do this. And you go in and like, were you still, when you left, were you like, holy man, if I have to do that?
Yeah, it was awful. Like it's supposed to be a maybe 1 to 2 hour process, and I was there for probably 6 or 8. It just nothing went right for them.
So how was your mental health when you were like, what, I'm sure you went through a range of feelings and a range
Oh yeah.
of mental health
Yeah.
levels. What was it like? Can you describe that?
Um, I think for the most part, I did my best to be pretty positive. I just had I had goals in mind. I had like living to do, and I didn't really feel like I had a choice. Like
Hmm.
you're looking at 8 cycles of chemo, 35 radiation treatments, and I just kind of was like, okay, let's get it done then, because I've got stuff to do and people to love. And um, I do remember kind of like it's almost like a, for lack of a better expression, a bipolar feeling, because I would be super positive one day and then just be not the most negative person, but just the most down person the following day. And
Hmm.
I remember telling my husband in the middle of treatment when I was so sick that I'm like, well, why am I even bothering? Like, what if we go through all this just for it to come back right away? And just in hysterical tears. And he was always my rock. Like he's the strong silent type. Anyone who's ever met him, he's a pretty quiet person, but he's my rock. He helped me through it.
I I can't imagine like it would be physically exhausting, but also emotionally exhausting. And
Hmm.
so like it just makes sense that you would be exhausted. Like,
Hmm.
why am I still doing this?
Yeah.
What did you imagine yourself to be? So when you pictured yourself
Hmm.
at this time, what was the picture in your head?
Like, as in like what I wanted to be when I was done, or
Yeah, just
sorry.
in like if you imagined yourself walking down the street or you
Hmm.
imagined yourself engaging in the world, what did that look like? Like was that what did you have an accurate picture of who you were? Or did you
Um, I think for the most part, I was kind of, yeah, I didn't expect to be like bald. I didn't expect to be fighting for my life, but I did I did want to be a hairdresser, and that's what I was doing at the time. So I mean, I was
Mhm.
somewhat close to what I was wanting to do and be.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's I was kind of there. I wasn't
Yeah.
hard to explain, but
And like when you picture yourself at the time when you
Mhm.
so you had lost your hair.
Yeah,
I know that Bif Naked is a was a big influence for you because she
oh,
went
huge.
to battle as well.
Yeah.
But like, did you, when you pictured yourself, were you badass in your mind or were you like sick in your mind?
At first I felt sick, but then I just kind of needed some time to process how I was feeling at the beginning of treatment. And um, I was told by my doctor, don't like the height of my chemo was during July, and so it was really hot out. And he's like, well, make sure you don't spend too much time in the sun because chemo can weaken your skin. And I was smart, but I'm like, okay, so the only joy I have right now is going outside
Mm.
and being in fresh air, and you're telling me not to do that. So I just covered myself in as much sunscreen as I could, and I was wearing tank tops and shorts, and I like I think that's the one part of my appearance I actually liked during treatment because I was like brown. It was nice.
Mm.
But yeah,
And a
just
little
being
bit of freedom
outside.
there.
Yeah.
Did you find a deeper love for yourself in going through this, or like what was your self-love like when you started versus, 6 months in?
Um, I think I had to learn how to say no. And I had to learn that not everybody's going to like what you tell them. They're not going to be happy with your answer. But um, I think I had some pretty decent self-love at the time. I remember at the like a cancer walk my sister and I did. I think I was like in the height of my treatment. I was just about done. And it was so hot. It was in Calgary and I had taken my bandana off because it was just even a bandana was too hot, let alone a wig. And I remember a senior lady was at the park with her grandchildren and she told me that my head was upsetting her grandchildren. And I wasn't rude to her and say anything like, oh, your opinion doesn't matter, but I just
Hmm.
was like, too bad. Like, your discomfort is not more important than mine. And
Hmm.
my bald head wasn't anything to be ashamed of. It was because I was trying to save my life.
Yeah.
And she was saying it in the middle of a cancer walk. So I'm like, yeah, yeah, you don't really
Wow.
know. Yeah,
Like, wow,
yeah.
right?
But I
Was
find
that
sometimes their age group, they're a little more unfiltered
mm, I,
sometimes.
you were right there.
Respect your elders. We don't have to respect you, but respect us.
My daughter the other
Yeah.
day called me a boomer. She said something about like something boomer. It wasn't okay boomer, but it was along those
Yeah.
lines. And I said, I'm Gen
Yeah.
X, and you have a lot to thank us for. The iPhone, like
Yeah.
I listed all these
Yeah.
things. Like, you like
Exactly. Yeah.
us. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, that's a total aside. How
Yeah.
frustrating was that to be? I mean, you're diagnosed at a really young age with a very aggressive cancer,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
you have to fight, but you've been told that maybe you'll win. How frustrating is it to be
Mhm.
told, but don't go live life, like don't go in the
Yeah.
sun, don't like.
Hmm. Um, it was disappointing, I would say. But I mean, I wouldn't say I went 100% against doctor's orders, but I'm like, there has to be a safe way to be in the sun. There has to be. Because,
Mhm,
I mean, I felt miserable. Like, chemo didn't make me throw up or anything, but it made me exhausted. And I thought, if I have one little spike of energy, I want to be able to go outside at least. And so I did. And I just made sure I protected my skin and my eyes because apparently I didn't really see results of it, but chemo can affect your eyes in a bad way, make them super sensitive to the sun. So I just had to wear sunglasses and be smart about it.
because that would be such a like if you don't know, if you aren't sure how much time you have left and you spend the
Hmm.
whole time just turtling, and it's just got to be such a difficult decision to make, what you will do, what you won't do, at what
Hmm.
cost,
Yeah.
and always weighing that, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And I had no guarantees, but I was kind of assuming I was going to be okay. I'm like, I have to think positive. I'm going to be fine. It's just going to be a
Hmm.
crappy year. And so that's kind of the headspace I tried to stay in. It's just, I'm going to be all right. It's just going to suck for a while.
I'm just gonna
So,
get you a shirt that says it's just gonna be a crappy year.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A little hashtag on it.
Yeah. Sorry, my back's
um,
hurting.
so what was your biggest dream before your diagnosis?
Hmm.
So like February 2016 or 2006.
Yeah.
What was your biggest dream then?
Well, I'll kind of plug a business here. It's when I was at the salon working, we all, as staff, went to the Comox Valley to a place called Kingfisher Resort. And that was actually happening just after I had found my lump. I wasn't able, like, I didn't have my diagnosis yet because not everything was instantaneous. And So we went to this amazing spa and had this great time, and it was a really welcome distraction. And I think I kind of had my mind off of it and like, no, I don't have cancer. This is just something going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I really did have cancer, it was just a nice distraction and like amazing place. Like I went once with my husband afterwards and I can't wait to get back. It's just not really conducive to COVID income.
Right.
Yeah.
What is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, who was an influence on you during that time?
Um, well, besides obviously the most amazing Bif Naked, she hadn't had her diagnosis. I just loved her before that. Um, my sister Ronnie, she's kind of a rock star in my eyes. Oh, she's a nurse and in emergency, and she kind of was like, she's not an oncology nurse, but she was my rock, and she kind of was also that person who helped me learn to say no, and
Mm,
that it's not okay for me to just accept mistreatment by others. And like when you have cancer, you definitely learn who you can count on and who you can't. Um, Sometimes in a great way, and other times really unfortunate. Um,
mm-hmm.
so she helped me kind of learn who I can count on and who I can't. And my mother-in-law, she's she's my mom. I lost my mom when I was 22, and she's been in my life for, well, since 1997. And she's, I don't know, she was a nurse casually at the time, and she had
Mm-hmm.
offered to take compassionate care leave to take care of me if it was required. And luckily it was not required. I was able to take care of myself for the most part. But she's just got the biggest heart, and to have her willing to do that for me is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you were just surrounded with love and like
Yeah,
a safety
absolutely.
net of
Yeah.
people who knew what the doctors were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was nice.
Um, so it's hard when you're fighting cancer. I mean, I think you have no choice but to be self-interested and
Yeah,
self-absorbed in a way.
absolutely.
Yeah, you just can't really focus on anyone else because
Hmm.
like clearly like you're actually fighting for your life.
Yeah.
Um, is there any way that when you look back where you were the bad guy, where there was stuff that maybe you wish you had done differently during that
Um,
time?
you know, I was the maid of honor in someone's wedding when I had been like 1 month out of chemo, and so like I had a real hair wig, and it was okay. But this this bride, um, it's it's not like uncomfortable to talk about, but it's hard to explain. She is no longer in my life. She told me that I use cancer for sympathy and as a trump card. And rather than responding in anger, because honestly, I don't wish cancer on anybody, not my worst enemy. The only way she would understand is if she were to have it, and I don't wish that for her. So sometimes you just
Mm-hmm.
have to know when to cut your losses. And like just during her whole wedding planning thing, like I had my rule when I was in chemo was the week that I have treatment, I can't do anything with anybody that weekend or have any expectations of myself that week because I just felt exhausted and like hell. And
Mm-hmm.
her dress fittings would be during that time, and she was mad at me for not showing up. And like it just, people don't get it unless they have it.
Mm-hmm.
You can be the loved one of someone who's been sick and you do have an experience with cancer, but unless you have it yourself, you have no idea.
That's I think that we I think that's key to how we usually generate empathy. That's why it's so hard for people
Hmm.
in their 20s to understand, and why once you hit 40, you really seem to have more compassion for other people because we've each had these experiences that
Hmm.
where we required empathy and didn't get it.
Yeah.
Um, like, so you're so young to be getting that lesson, though. Most of us get it later in life.
Hmm.
So did you reform friend groups? Did you like, were there people that stuck with you?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. Like I do have some friends from like elementary and younger days, but my husband at the time, like during plumbing school, he prior to plumbing school, he had worked at the store that's now closed, like Excess Cargo. It was like a retail
Mm,
store. And
yeah.
he met some really awesome friends there. And it's kind like it was unexpected, but they've been some of my biggest supporters. And we've
Hmm.
just become like, the wife friends of all the guys that work together and the people
Yeah.
that work together. And they've, yeah, they've been in my corner through everything. And it's kind of random, like the friends you meet in adult years that they can become your biggest supports.
My last question that I ask related to the age
Hmm.
is, and like this is just so huge, but the question is, what lessons do you carry forward from that time? I
Oh,
imagine those are some pretty big lessons.
yeah. Honestly, like I guess regarding health for women, well, obviously men can get breast cancer as well, but I can't speak to that. um, for women, just know your body. Like, yeah, you're only 20 or you're only 22, but if something doesn't feel right, you're the only one who's gonna know. So if you think, oh, I'm too young to get cancer, think again. I don't want you to live in fear of it, but
Hmm.
think again if you think it couldn't happen to you, because it does. And if you do self exams, you're going to know on a monthly basis what is your normal. And if like your doctor you see once a year, he's not going to know what's normal for you. So you can be you're your only advocate. You're your own health
Hmm.
advocate. And yeah.
That's such an important point that your doctor that you see once a year is not going to know what your normal is. I think
Yeah.
that a lot of us are just kind of relying on that. Had you not taken it seriously when you did? Was it aggressive enough that you would have had a different end result?
Um well, how my cancer was, it's called triple negative, so it's like not hormone receptive. I didn't have to take meds after chemo and radiation. And so while that's great that I didn't have to take a medication afterwards, that's also not great because it means your cancer's that much more aggressive and stronger. And it's not going to like there's some chemo treatments out there that are aggravated almost by hormones and estrogen. And so there's pros and cons to my diagnosis, but um, yeah, it's hard to explain. It's just like there's a really great side to it, but there's also a
Mhm.
really horrible side to it.
So, I had a pulmonary embolism like a while ago, and for about 3 years after, I couldn't sleep laying down because I was so afraid of it happening again.
Hmm.
Um, and the PTSD that comes after it, and the trauma that comes from recovery. There's trauma that comes with that as much as there is with going through it.
Very
What
much.
was your recovery like?
Um, well, there's certain things that are like forgotten or just kind of blurry, but I remember the exact day that I finished treatment. It was a Friday. It was December 22nd, and um, some things stick very cemented into your mind. I find um, it was certain things happening during the beginning of my treatment. I had my incision in my armpit area. It one of the dissolvable sutures did not dissolve, and it like bulged out, and I thought, oh my God, there's like another tumor right in my armpit. And so I didn't make an appointment. I just like rushed up to the cancer center and just
Uh-huh.
basically demanded to be seen. And Dr. Graham, the most amazing guy on the planet, he humored me, and he just like he pulled me into the room and he looked at it and he's like, "That's just a suture, honey. It's fine." But he
Yeah,
says, "I understand why you're here because the last time you found a bump, it kind of turned your life upside down." And
exactly.
so when things are not normal with my body, I do get a little nervous, but I don't let it, I guess I don't live in fear of it. I just go see a doctor. Like
Yeah.
when people say things to me like, "Oh, I was too scared to go find out," or "I didn't want to go because I was scared." Like, not knowing is not going to help you.
Yeah.
That's going to be worse. Like you could have something that could be treated, but if you wait because you're scared, you're
Hmm.
not helping yourself at all.
I think that sorry, I'm just gonna,
That's
this
all
has
right.
nothing to do with you, but
Hmm.
somebody, if you're in the comments section, can you please report that comment by Lee Chi? Can you like get that out of there? Go ahead and report it. Do whatever you need to do to get that out of there. There's a weird comment in our comment
Hmm.
section. I just want to get that out of there.
Yeah.
Um, I think that I know my experience in the medical system is that I really have to advocate for myself
Hmm.
when I go in and say, like this is my problem. The number one thing that doctors say to us as women is it's constipation, right?
Hmm.
Like, or it's your hormones, or it's like all of these normal things. And so I think that it's really important while we're talking about this that we say to everyone, if you feel like it's wrong, then it's wrong.
Yeah.
And continue to advocate for yourself until you have a resolution that makes you um, feel like you're safe again.
Yeah. You know yourself. Nobody, nobody knows you the way you know you.
Because you fortunately had a doctor at 26 that took you seriously.
Yeah. And you hear from other people down the road, like, "Oh, oh, he was your doctor? Oh, he's not a very good doctor." I'm like, "Well, he's pretty awesome in my eyes. He saved my life."
Yeah,
Like
I'm
he could have been
here.
like, "Oh, it's nothing, just go home." But I mean, he took me seriously. He didn't think I had cancer, but
Hmm.
he said, "Let's make sure you don't."
Yeah.
And
He didn't send you
because of
home
that,
without a resolution. Yeah.
exactly.
That is,
So due to him
I,
believing
I
me.
I'm still astounded that we chose that year to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite the coincidence.
That is quite the coincidence. So are you cancer free or are you living with cancer?
I am cancer free. I was 14 years cancer free this past July.
Wow.
Yeah. So while I
Yeah.
don't
And
think I beat it, I've survived it because
yeah.
nobody has any guarantees it could return. I hope like hell it
Hmm.
never does, but there's
Do
been
you
other
think,
things that have happened to me that I'd rather do cancer again. So
oh wow.
yeah,
Wow. We need to have
yeah,
another show with you then, Melanie. I'm gonna pick a different age.
yeah, no
What was,
doubt.
hey, what was worse than cancer?
Oh, honestly,
Oh,
yeah.
I do want to talk about that because it has to do with your son, probably.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, you've lived a lot in 41 years.
yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything that you believe you've done that you wouldn't have done had you not had cancer?
You know, I do think so because I think had I not had cancer and learned to stick up for myself and say no, that's not okay, or just learn to say no in general, I think I'd probably still have certain people in my life had I not learned how to do that.
Mm,
Um, Probably would live less in the moment
mm-hmm,
than, yeah, I think those would be the biggest ones. I'd probably unfortunately still be allowing certain toxic people to be in my life, and
mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. It like almost dying changes you. It just
sure does.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just does. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about the importance of stars.
Hmm.
And if you're willing to talk about that part of your life, because this is an
Yeah,
opportunity for us to highlight how important that is.
absolutely.
So yeah, let's talk about when you did have kids.
Well, we were, like I had discussed with you earlier, our doctor said 1 year from the final day of treatment and 1 year and 1 month from my last day of radiation, we were expecting our son. So we
Wow,
were very, very lucky.
you are a get shit done kind of person.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much right on schedule. Not like we were
Yeah.
trying. I was definitely not. I was not trying not to. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Just the way it was supposed to go.
yep, pretty much.
All right.
Everyone sobbed. The whole family sobbed because nobody thought it was going to happen.
I bet.
Yeah,
So you had Jaden in 2007?
he was born November 2008. Yeah.
2008.
Hmm.
Gotcha. And then Jaden got sick.
Yeah, he was 6 years old. March, I want to say March 5th, 2000, 2015. Yeah, he
March is a bad month for you.
it is a bad month. A lot of stuff has gone down. He like we had just been keeping him home. Like he had had the flu, just what you do with your kids, you keep them home, give them fluids. He just had a bad flu, we thought, and but he never had a fever. That was the only difference. We didn't really understand that, but we just thought, whatever, it's a strange flu. We'll just keep him home, get him better. And he continuously was getting worse. He just wasn't taking fluids in. He'd have a sip here and there and get rid of it right away. And so on Thursday, the I don't know, Thursday the 5th or something. Some of these memories are blurry but kind of vivid. I woke up to the sound of him whimpering and I just kind of thought,
Mhm.
okay, he's getting ready to be sick again because he kind of does that. And when I got to his room, he was sitting on the floor upright and awake, but not with it. Like he could not focus on me or talk to me. He was unable to speak. It was like a catatonic state I found him in.
Wow.
And yeah. So I'm an expert panicker. It's what I do best. I freak out and then my husband calms the scene. So we're a good balance. He hears me freaking out and he rushes in and said, "Go get dressed. We got to take him to the hospital." And so we rushed him to Red Deer Emergency and a lot of stuff went down, but yeah, he ended up having no sodium in his body at all, almost. He his sodium had crashed, and so I like to sing his praises, but Dr. Hogarth in the Red Deer Emergency Room, him and his team were absolutely incredible. They, even though Jaden couldn't complete all his treatment there, they are the reason he's still alive, in my opinion, because
Hmm.
they took blood and found out that he had almost no sodium. And Dr. Hogarth later said that he gave him like the highest dose of saline he's ever given a child in his career to
Wow.
just buy him some time to find out what the hell's going on with our kid. And so he did what he could. Like they couldn't figure out what was happening. I remember bits and pieces of them asking me things like, "Well, do you leave drug paraphernalia around your house?" And I remember briefly being offended, like, "What the hell? Who asks them that?" But
Hmm.
there's probably families where that's a very valid concern, and
Yeah.
um, they had to try and understand why this is happening. So um, yeah, he didn't know what was happening, so he called the pediatrician on call, which ironically was the pediatrician when my son was born. Um, she came, couldn't figure it out after reading over his chart and hearing about the symptoms. So she called the Children's Hospital in Calgary and explained what was happening and his condition. And they basically said, "Holy shit, we're sending stars to bring him here right now." And I told my husband after the fact, it was scary, of course, what was happening with my
Hmm.
son, but when someone tells you STARS is coming, then this fear really sets in, because STARS is for emergencies. Like, they don't
Stars
send it
is
for a kid
because
with the
they
flu.
don't have time otherwise, right?
Yeah. So without them, you know, speeding up the process of getting him to Calgary, he probably wouldn't be here. It's
Wow.
the teamwork of those 3 hospitals working together that we still have a son.
That's just so how long was he? I just oh that's all I can say is off. How long
Yeah.
was he in the hospital?
He went there on a Thursday and he was home Sunday.
Wow.
It was so fast. Like, it just
Wow.
was such a short-lived illness. And when he had all his tests, like, to give you a picture of what it looks like in the NICU at the Children's Hospital, he he had his room. It looked like an emergency room, and there's like a team of like 8 to 10 doctors outside of his room with their laptops, and they're bouncing ideas off of each other, like, well, what do you think of this? Do you think it's this? And it was like an episode of House, watching them, because they invited me out there to listen, and it, like, of course, like, way over my head.
Yeah.
But it was, once they finally got some answers, like, they had different teams of specialists coming in, and it turned out he had something called, like, the acronym is SIADH. So it's like an inappropriate secretion of the antidiuretic hormone. And it's typically a senior citizen illness, not young children, but he randomly had it, and it causes your sodium to bottom out, causing a condition called hyponatremia. So his brain was shutting down, his organs were failing, and yeah, so it was like, it's very deadly.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think a doctor told me after too that when our son was born, he had a very mild case of it. And like, oh, well, I wonder why they didn't tell me. And he said it was so mild, they probably thought it wasn't even worth mentioning. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they have no, it's, this is like, the PTSD that comes with this is way worse than experiencing cancer firsthand, because
I can't even imagine
it's awful.
how long did it take you to even let him leave your sight?
It was hard.
Yeah.
um, it was it was really hard. Every time he had the sniffles, I just thought, oh God, it's happening again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like, if I had been told a cause, it would be different. But they
Mm-hmm.
don't know why this happened to him. They just know the what. They don't know the why. So I did ask them, can this happen again? And they're like, we don't think so, but we don't really know why it happened this time. So let's hope not, is all they said, really. And like, I'm a girl who likes answers. And that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like not really an answer, but I kind of had to cut them some slack. They don't know why, so they can't just make up
Yeah.
something for to pacify me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe they could.
They could. Wouldn't be effective, but
No,
yeah.
it wouldn't work anyway, right?
Yeah.
Even if they told you this will never happen again, you still would be hyper vigilant and still worry about it
Oh,
every day.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because
So
our
when I
kid,
see a fever, I'm just like celebrating, because it's not like, you're never happy that your kid's sick, but if a fever shows up, I'm like, I can explain that. I can treat that.
you're literally the only parent during COVID that is happy for a fever, right?
Exactly. I know. Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
other one's like, oh man.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that is that's crazy. So uh you the reason I do Joe out loud is because I
Mhm,
believe that regular people have profound stories and an
mhm,
ability to help others. We don't have to be celebrities, we don't have to live these extraordinary lives in order to help somebody in some way.
mhm,
And I think that tonight, I mean, you've given so many pieces to whoever's watching on um, things that will make their life better. Like it's just so simple. Um, if there's a fight, fight.
mhm. Yeah,
Throw your safety net and know who's got your back. And be
absolutely.
willing, yeah, be willing to let go, establish your boundaries.
You
Um,
do, yeah. And the
yeah.
whole mental health aspect of experiencing trauma, I, to be honest, I didn't want to admit that I had an anxiety issue or PTSD. I didn't want to
Hmm.
deal with it. I just had become this, like, I had become this very irritable person. I didn't have patience with people. I didn't have patience with my son. I was just like not angry at people, but just not myself. I was pretty negative, just didn't have patience for anybody. And my sister-in-law, actually, I was visiting her in Vernon. That's where her family lives. And she's like, maybe you should go see someone. And I just thought, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do that. And I
Hmm.
kind of like, well, maybe I'll think about it. I told her. I kind of pacified her actually. And when I had gotten home, I think about a month after, she's like, so have you gone to see anyone yet? And she was like, kind of kept on me about it, which was great because I mean, my mother-in-law had always also mentioned it that, you could probably live a lot happier if you went and talked to someone and just see what they have to say. And um, as soon as I saw a doctor, yeah, he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's some PTSD for sure." I mean,
Hmm.
multiple traumas over my life. Like in 2002, I lost my mom to taking her own life and cancer
Oh,
4 years later. And, just it just keeps snowballing. And if you don't get help, I don't know, unless you're a psychologist, I don't know how you help yourself. It's just, it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. And yeah, I felt really brave going into the doctor's office and asking for some help. And I thought, yeah, I'm badass. I can do this. And as
mm.
soon as I started explaining what was going on, I just burst into tears. And he was just amazing. It was just the exact response I needed when I felt so vulnerable and scared.
And sometimes it's just having someone say, well, like it, as simple as it is, well, yeah, obviously,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Like you should be feeling this, and it's okay that you're
yeah,
feeling this, and let's figure it out.
yeah.
Is there any chance that that was happening in the like mid 2010 to 2015 time for you?
Oh, probably. I wouldn't doubt it. I just probably sloughed it off of as just, oh, it's a bad day, or you're just feeling
Yeah,
shitty, or moody, it's PMS or whatever.
yeah.
But you can only do that for so long, and especially when
Mhm.
family members are approaching you separately and okay, maybe
Yeah,
they're onto something.
yeah.
Maybe I
It's
should look into this.
there's a quote from I think it's from We Bought a Zoo that says all it takes is 20 seconds of profound bravery to change your life.
Hmm.
And that's literally all it takes. It takes
Hmm.
20 seconds of walking in to a therapist, of having a hard conversation, of somebody having a hard conversation with you. It takes
Hmm.
20 seconds for the direction of your life to change. And when you're in control of that 20 seconds, then like just proceed with that bravery. Like for you to decide to go and seek counseling for that and to really understand your family is so much better for it, I'm sure. Um,
Absolutely. It's not a
and
cure, but it's a tool that helps me cope.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people think that counseling is a cure, but it's not. Absolutely. That's
no.
exactly what it is it's just they
Yeah.
give you a toolbox and then it's
Yep.
up to you whether you're going to use those tools or not and how you're going to use those tools. Or you can just walk away and continue to do what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is your idol, Bif Naked.
Yeah.
It turns out she got breast cancer a couple years
Yeah.
after you did.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I first met you online,
Hmm.
you were full of rage.
Oh
You
yeah.
aligned so closely with Bif Naked. I keep saying Biz.
She'd probably been called worse.
Yeah, she's definitely been called worse.
Yeah.
Um, so when that happened, did that kind of make you feel like you had kind of an ally in this?
Yeah, and like of course I don't know if you've read her book, I Bifficus. It's a very big eye opener to her mental health and everything she's
Mm.
experienced in her personal and music career. And she, um, I think just because I admire, like I love her music, I think she's a badass rocker chick. Um,
Mhm.
she has talent that way. She's very like to me she's a powerful feminist and animal activist, and like
Mhm.
she makes women feel empowered. It's okay to be sexy. It's okay to wear a short skirt if you want to. It doesn't make you a slut because you're wearing,
Mhm.
a bra top and a mini skirt. Like, um, and just I think because I admired her in other aspects, when I felt horrible for her when I heard about her diagnosis, and I just thought, oh
Mhm.
God, she's way too young for this as well. I'm not sure
Mhm.
the age of her diagnosis, but she was way too young for it to happen as well. And I just thought we can't lose her. Like, she's
Mhm.
got to fight. And I mean, of course, she has unsurmountable amount of fight in her, but I just felt so scared that we were like, I speak about her like I know her, but
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was scared that we were going to lose her because she's
yeah.
incredible.
When you're talking to somebody who's like obsessed with Bon Jovi, I was like, so
Yeah,
I
I don't have to
understand.
justify it to you.
You do not have to justify any part of this to me.
Yeah,
No.
she actually talked me through my first panic attack too. Like I think I could probably honestly say I've only had maybe two, but my husband and I are kind of nerds, and we were going to Comic-Con and in Calgary, and we had pulled up onto Memorial Drive, and instantly I started hyperventilating, like my chest hurt. I was bawling hysterically, and my
Mm.
husband was trying not to panic as well because he's in the middle of traffic in Calgary, but he was just like, "What the hell is going on with this woman?" Like, I
Yeah.
so I had just thought, random when we pulled into a parking lot, I'm like, "What's your thoughts? What is this?" She's like, "Oh, honey, that's a panic attack." And she's like, "Can you think of anything regarding that road that would trigger it?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I traveled that road twice a day for a month and a half when I was
Oh,
doing radiation. And it was the first time I'd ever
wow.
been on Memorial Drive since my treatment. And it just was weird. Like I saw that sign and I thought, oh God, and it just flooded me. And
Wow.
he just
Okay,
explained it so simply.
so we're clear. Bif Naked did that?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. You met Bif
yeah.
Naked in a parking lot when you were having a
Oh no,
panic
I
attack?
didn't meet her there. I messaged her. Yeah,
Oh,
that would be amazing. That'd be
I was
amazing. But
your life is like this consecutive series of like really unusual events.
yeah, no doubt.
But
No,
even
I just thought
she
she's
talked
a
you through it online too.
yeah, she did, yeah. And she
That's
just was so like matter of fact about it. She's like, "Oh, I know what that is." Like,
that is so
yeah.
cool. Okay, no,
Yeah.
I'm joking. I was gonna say I'm gonna make a note, have a panic attack and message John Bon Jovi, but I'm not
Yeah,
gonna.
exactly, right? No.
Everyone says to me, "What would you do if you met John Bon Jovi?" And I was like, "Well, first I would throw up on his shoes,
Yeah.
and then I would
I
talk
did meet
business."
Bif Naked later, and my husband and I went to her Songs and Stories tour at I
Oh.
can't remember what it was called, but it was like the piano house downtown, and her husband and her were there. And when I met her, I brought her book to have her sign it, and I went, she's like, "Your name, honey?" And I said, mm, mm. And my husband stepped in and he's like, "Her name is Melanie." I couldn't even remember my own name. I just felt like I'm in the
Oh,
presence of royalty. So I couldn't even remember my name. I felt like such a twit.